very low overhead, and I like it that way. I don't have a lot of needs. Well, this is this was a barn, a garage, and there was a snowstorm, a heavy snowstorm about 3 years ago, I suppose, and the snow load on the roof caused the roof to collapse. So anyway, it's kind of an open air garage, and I have a hose hooked up in there, and I wash off under it. The oil industry has changed dramatically, and I don't like to see that. I see companies going out of business and people being fired and laid off and loading up U-Haul trailers and heading out of town, and it's sad. It hasn't really affected me because we service the infrastructure that has been built, and once that infrastructure is built, it still needs to be maintained. I'm very thankful for that. Set up a chair up here for you guys. So tonight we'll have fondue. Kind of a last-minute rush. But it's nice to have the company. I actually enjoy it. As I said before, you're really, outside of a former girlfriend that came over a couple of times, you're like the only visitors that I've had here in the over 4 years that I've been in Williston. I used to be far, far, far too interested in girls. And that, like politics, I've come to realize, well, politics is a scam. Girls are just problems. So I stay away from both of them now.
This gas station over here, we used to deliver to them 3-4 dozen donuts. Last week they quit the order altogether because nobody was coming in to buy donuts, so there goes one more. So we skip this one and keep on going around the corner. How's your morning going?
Not good.
No feeling. Hey, thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Cindy, the owner of the manager of the store there, her business is down so far that she's had to take on a second job now. So she sells cosmetics to women here in the oil field. We gave up a lot to come up here, but we thought it was going to be best for our family. We thought that the oil boom would be here for at least another 15 years, and that we would be able to make enough money to pay for our kids to go to college. The American dream is changing. That's not what it used to be, and it's a tough reality to deal with. say the boom will come back, but if it does, it'll be much, much more shallow growth curve, and it won't be nearly as much money in it. I don't know. I'm an eternal optimist. I think it's gonna come back.
The day of the concert, when I was preparing to perform, I had actually prepared myself to die.
آریانا سعید و امثال آریانا سعید کسایی هستند که از نظر فرهنگ والای اسلام اینها مباح دم هستند.
This country was really good civilization, and so we lost everything.
با چالش‌های بزرگی که رو در رو هستیم و از جمله این است که ما خیلی تهدید میشیم، از سوی طالب خیلی تهدید میشیم. اونا گپ و سخن طالبی است که
Нас называли дивизией Waffen-СС.
Я узница концлагеря Салспиля, страшного Салспиля. Заживо гнили дети.
Это не доказано, то есть научно.
Там на полметра была пропитана земля полусгоревшим человеческим жиром. 632 тела ребенком.
Здесь мой взвод. Очень интеллигентные люди. Очень приятно было работать.
Больно это все вспоминать.
People come to their senses. We have more money than anybody else by far. We'll build it up.
In the stories that shaped the week, President Trump threatens a new arms race with China and Russia as he looks to pull out of a major Cold War nuclear agreement, causing further divisions with his EU partners. A gunman burst into a synagogue in the US state of Pennsylvania, shooting dead 11 people and wounding 6 others. Also to come this hour, Europe and its transatlantic allies, Canada and the US, appear unwilling to freeze arms sales to Saudi Arabia in the wake of the killing of the dissident journalist Jamal Khashoggi. And the German state of Hesse is voting today in a regional election that could have national ramifications and weaken Angela Merkel's hard-fought Grand Coalition. Hello, welcome. The latest news and a look back at what's been happening over the last 7 days too. You're watching The Weekly here on RT International. Now, on Tuesday, the US president again threatened a new arms race with Russia and China, just days after he announced he was pulling his country out of a major nuclear treaty signed during the Cold War. Donald Trump also repeated his earlier accusations, saying that Moscow was in breach of the INF Accord.
Russia has not adhered to the agreement. This should have been done years ago. Until people come to their senses, we have more money than anybody else by far. We'll build it up. Until they come to their senses. When they do, then we'll all be smart and we'll all stop. And by the way, not only stop, we'll reduce.
Well, Moscow insists it hasn't violated the nuclear treaty and believes it should be preserved, saying it is, in fact, Washington that's not been sticking to the deal. Russia's foreign ministry has recently said, too, the US sent a list of its concerns to Moscow just days before announcing its decision to quit, leaving it no time to reply. Well, under the agreement, signed back in 1987, all short and mid-range nuclear and conventional missiles were banned, with the exception of those launched at sea. Washington says it's in talks with its European allies about its withdrawal, some of which aren't too happy about the move.
The announcement by the US that it's going to withdraw from the INF Accord is regrettable. The INF agreement has been an important pillar of our European security architecture for 30 years. For us in Europe, it's of great importance. We call on the US to consider the possible consequences.
The US and Russia need to remain engaged in constructive dialogue to preserve the treaty and to ensure that its full and verifiable implementation, which of course is crucial for Europe's and global security.
The problem is, as others have pointed out, and particularly this is a problem, I think, for Europeans, that this treaty was designed to prevent or reduce the risk of nuclear weapons being used by the nuclear threshold being lowered and not, shall we say, long-range heavy nuclear weapons being used against the United States and the Soviet Union, or today Russia, but that with these shorter-range weapons, that it would be Western Europe, that would become the nuclear battlefield. And there's some concern, I think a great deal of concern, amongst all European leaders except the United Kingdom, who yesterday have stated that they support the American position, predictably enough. There is concern that this reduces prospects for nuclear disarmament, increases risks for West Europe and its people.
So little surprise then that America's plans to pull out of the accord dominated Tuesday's meeting between the US National Security Advisor John Bolton and also President Putin. And although the subject at hand was no laughing matter, there was actually some room for some humour.
As far as I remember, there is an eagle on the US national emblem, and there are 13 arrows in one foot, and an olive branch with 13 olives as a symbol of peaceful policy in the other. My question is, did your eagle eat all the olives and leave just the arrows?
I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you on behalf of President Trump, and hopefully I'll have some answers for you. But I didn't bring any more olives.
That's what I thought.
During the talks, Putin said he was puzzled by Washington's move in the absence of any provocation from Moscow. As for the INF treaty itself, John Bolton called it outdated and insisted it should be revised to include other nations, most notably China. International affairs commentator Jonathan Steele believes it's the fear of Beijing's growing military might that is behind Trump's plans.
Many commentators think that this is the American decision is linked more to China than to Russia, because the Chinese are not part of the treaty. They've been developing their missile capabilities and their other military capabilities in Southeast Asia and the South China Sea, and the Americans want to be able to confront them there. And the treaty, which we're talking about now, prevents the Americans, of course, deploying missiles not just in Europe, but in Asia as well. And the Americans want to get out of it so they can start putting missiles there.
Well, Trump's threat to ditch the treaty does fall in line with his America First policy. Murad Gaziev has more now on the wider ambitions of the president.
Donald Trump can be called any number of things. Good, bad, it all depends on which side you're on. Interestingly enough, though, it's Donald Trump that keeps giving Donald Trump new titles.
A globalist is a person that wants the globe to do well, frankly, not caring about our country so much. You know what I am? I'm a nationalist, okay? I'm a nationalist.
Kinda obvious if you think about it. What with all this talk of greatness, walls, and how special, exceptional Americans are.
It's going to be only America first. American people first. America's interests above all else. Make America great again.
Now, if I may, Mr. President, you seem to be confused about what those words mean. It's right there in any dictionary.
Globalism, a national policy of treating the whole world as a proper sphere for political influence.
A globalist is someone who treats the entire world as a playground, making national decisions which affect the international community. In simple terms, globalism is when Mr. Trump tells South Korea, meaning outside America, that they can't lift sanctions, their own sanctions, on North Korea without his permission.
They won't do it without our approval. They do nothing without our approval.
And by the way, US sanctions, which basically force everyone to abide by them because of how the dollar works, are by definition a globalist venture. You know what else is globalist? War. Invading other countries. The US currently fighting in 7 wars. That's really, really globalist as well. Heck, the United States military is one of the most globalist organizations in the world. It has bases in roughly every 3rd country. 1 in 3 nations has a US military base in it. That isn't nationalism, that's globalism.
I just want to see Venezuela straightened out. A regime that frankly could be toppled very quickly by the military.
Regime change. Replacing or helping replace governments you just don't like via arming local rebels to the teeth or financing the opposition or by sanctions. That's globalism. Globalism.
It suits Trump's purposes to talk about globalism as the enemy, but if you look at the politics, it's anything but nationalist. Trump's attitude to the world as an individual is that he should have complete sovereignty, and that includes sovereignty to abuse the sovereignty of others. You know, he wants America to be able to go and do business wherever they want. He wants to be able to remove regimes that he doesn't like. He wants to act truly globally, but in the national interest, as Donald Trump himself conceives it.
Here's a fun fact. The word globalism, its modern meaning, was first used to describe US imperialism after the Second World War. The way the United States, which wasn't destroyed by the war like Europe, dominated in international trade, pushing its products, its ideology, its politics on everyone it could. They called it American globalism. So hearing Mr. Trump, who believes in returning America back to its glory days, say that he isn't a globalist is like hearing the Pope say with a straight face that really he isn't Catholic.
In other news this week, Turkey continues to demand the killers of a Saudi journalist are brought to trial. The Turkish president says the murder of Jamal Khashoggi in Istanbul was politically motivated.
Our security and intelligence services are still analysing the info they have. It's already clear that the murder of Jamal Khashoggi was planned. Since this is a political assassination, we also call for the inclusion of possible foreign accomplices, if any.
Well, the Saudi royal family has met with Khashoggi's son and brother to express condolences. The journalist's eldest son was pictured shaking hands with the Saudi crown prince, who is suspected of orchestrating the killing of his father. He later left Saudi Arabia for Washington, according to sources. The US president this week condemned the cover-up of the Khashoggi murder, but still stressed the importance of continued weapons sales to Riyadh.
Cover-up was one of the worst in the history of cover-ups. Saudi Arabia's been a really great ally. They've been one of the biggest investors, maybe the biggest investor in our country. They are doing hundreds of billions of dollars worth of investments and, you know, so many jobs, thousands and thousands of jobs. They've been funding a lot of things.
Well, Trump's statement there was met with huge criticism by EU powers, but they also are refusing to cancel multi-billion-dollar arms sales to Saudi Arabia. In fact, so far, Germany is the only exception.
I agree with all those who say that arms exports, which are already limited, must not take place in the current circumstances.
I don't have to react to every single statement a leader makes, so I won't answer that question. If you're not interested in the issues related to this event, don't come. But this is not a press conference. It's not a press conference to react to the German Chancellor. All that has nothing to do with this event. Nothing. Nothing. So I won't answer.
Let's put some context on that. France is one of the biggest sellers of defence and arms equipment in the world, and Saudi Arabia is one of its biggest clients, despite the fact that President Macron has tried to play down those trade relations between the two countries. The figures don't lie. Between 2008 and 2017, deals worth more than $12 billion were struck between the two countries, and that seems to be a similar thing that we're hearing in Spain, where they have said that they will not curtail a deal with Saudi Arabia that's worth $2 billion.
It's about the obligations undertaken by the previous government, which correspond to the demands of international and national law, especially considering the UN resolution. I am the head of the government now, and my duty is to take care of legal security and to comply with international obligations.
Well, it seems that that's a similar view that's being taken by the Canadians. Now, they have deals with Saudi Arabia that are worth almost $12 billion. And the Prime Minister there, Justin Trudeau, has said that he's more concerned about the cancellation fee, which is around $1 billion if they decide not to go ahead with that contract, rather than holding Saudi Arabia to account for the killing of that journalist.
It is unacceptable and unthinkable that someone could have murdered a journalist on foreign soil like this. I do not want to leave Canadians holding a billion-dollar bill because we're trying to move forward on doing the right thing.
Seems not much also coming from the United Kingdom, which is the second biggest supplier of arms to Saudi Arabia, just behind the US, with deals worth around $15 billion. Now, the idea of sanctions was mooted by the Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, but no clear indication of what those sanctions could be or whether they'll be applied. And when Prime Minister Theresa May was questioned about this, all she said is that she would speak to the King of Saudi Arabia. No concrete information on whether there would be sanctions against the country. It seems for the moment that Germany is the only country it's going alone and putting its neck out in suspending and cancelling these contracts.
Charlotte Dubinsky reporting there. Well, Georgi Kuzmanovic, the defence spokesperson for the France Unbowed party, says that no crimes will stop Europe selling arms to Riyadh because there is too much money involved.
We know that there are many violations of human rights in Saudi Arabia, but above all in Yemen. And It's not time anymore for just words. It's time for action. And I think they're just buying time by saying that they will wait for further inquiries. It's sad, but European Union and especially our French president, Mr. Emmanuel Macron, is backing one of the worst country, which is doing one of the worst war in the world.
Now, still to come on the weekly, Italy does say it won't change one comma in its budget after the EU rejected it, giving Rome 3 weeks, in fact, to come up with a better plan. We've got the details just after the break.
Trump has been coming up with a lot of statements saying that the Arab states of the Gulf should take care of the Middle East, or rather, we're still committed to the Middle East. So there's a lot of incoherences there. But I think Saudi Arabia is hugely important to the United States, and I think Trump understands that. And this is exactly what was driving his kind of commentary on the Jamal Khashoggi killing. I think that's, at the end of the day, it's not going to change the status quo of America's policy vis-a-vis the Gulf.
Barack Obama really was very European in his approach. He would be very well suited as an MEP in Brussels, for example. He doesn't represent America. Trump is America, for better or worse, and I think what we're trying to do here is to let the world see what we're all about here.
Hello again. Now, the German region of Hesse is going to the polls today to elect a new local government, and the result could have a significant impact nationally too, threatening Angela Merkel's hard-fought Grand Coalition. Polls are predicting support for the traditional parties is likely to fall away in favour of the Greens and also other left-wing forces. The right-wing Alternative for Germany party is also expected to strengthen its position too, as Peter Oliver reports.
The party, known for its anti-immigration stance, is set to chalk up another milestone in German politics, just over a year since they shocked the country by entering the Bundestag for the first time. Polls predict that this Sunday, Alternative for Germany will enter the state parliament in Hesse for the first time. That will mean that they have representation in all 16 German states, as well as the national parliament. Ahead of that vote in Hesse, Alternative for Germany have been campaigning aggressively.
Ich bin Jude und ich habe einen Migrationshintergrund. Das können wir nicht bringen. Nein, Moment, das ist wirklich so. Ich bin Jude, ich habe Migrationshintergrund und ich bin in der AfD.
Hesse holds a special place for Alternative for Germany, or the AfD. It was at a meeting there back in February 2013 that the party was formed, setting themselves out from the get-go as an anti-establishment group focused on the economy.
The parties in the Bundestag and Bundesrat don't do any politics in the interest or consideration of Germany and Europe.
In the 5 years since its formation, Alternative for Germany has been widely criticised by those who condemn what they see as its populist and racist stance.
The AfD in Germany has the rhetoric of the 1920s, and we all know where this took our land and our continent to.
You have a blatant problem with anti-Semitism.
The whole of the AfD is an anti-liberal, anti-civic party.
Despite that, AfD have enjoyed steady growth in the polls here in Germany, at times even coming in as the second largest political group in the country. And while taking up seats in Hesse would see them represented in all 16 of Germany's states, they aren't going to see this as job done.
Peter Oliver there. Well, we gauged opinion about today's election in one of the cities in the Hesse region.
I think the election results should go in favour of the Greens this time, and with that, a change comes in society. That means more for green energy, because I personally work for wind power plants, and it would be nice if Hesse did more with its wind and solar energy.
Actually, I expect the CDU and the SPD will lose support. The other parties people are talking about, the AFD, the Greens, the Free Voters, will get more points. But I believe that nothing will change with all this politics. They're all staying firmly in place, but like I said, it's always been like this for the past few elections. During the elections, there's a lot that it's promised, and then when the election is over, they say, what I said yesterday is yesterday's snowfall, and it doesn't change a thing. In the end, they've just filled their pockets and continue in this way.
We hope there's going to be a positive election result for all voters. Positive in the sense that the CDU and the SPD will make it. It's highly probable. I really expect that to happen.
In other news, hundreds have gathered for a candlelit vigil in the US city of Pittsburgh to mourn the victims of a mass shooting at a synagogue on Saturday. Police say that 11 worshippers were killed when a gunman stormed the building and opened fire during morning service. A further 6 people were injured, including 4 police officers. It's believed to be the deadliest attack against Jews in the country's history and has stunned the local community. The shooter, who is in custody, has been identified as 46-year-old Robert Bowers. He was reportedly carrying multiple firearms, including a semi-automatic assault rifle. Well, the atrocity took place on what is traditionally the busiest day of the week for synagogues. Human and labour rights lawyer Dan Kovalik was actually in the area when the attack happened, and he spoke with us.
There's people gathered all around here. A lot of people in mourning, a lot of parishioners with their heads in their hands, people just trying to figure out what has happened here. You know, it's a very somber situation. This is a bedroom community here in Pittsburgh, and we don't see these things happen very often. There's a number of synagogues here in Squirrel Hill. This is a very strong Jewish community here. It's still in lockdown. It's very hard to get in and out of Squirrel Hill at this point, and I've never seen this many police in one place in Pittsburgh. I mean, it's really a very tense situation. And very sad. People were very sad.
Well, President Trump has ordered flags to be flown at half-mast until the end of the month, and he has also said, too, that the perpetrator should be executed.
I think one thing we should do is we should stiffen up our laws in terms of the death penalty. When you have crimes like this, whether it's this one or another one on another group, we have to bring back the death penalty. They have to pay the ultimate price.
It is the latest mass shooting at a religious site in the US. In recent years, 2 similar attacks have claimed the lives of 35 people. Now, shoes, whether flung at faces or perhaps banged on podiums, do make the occasional appearance in politics. And now, after the EU rejected Italy's proposed new budget, it was the turn of an Italian MEP to put his foot down. Well, it is the first time the European Commission has rejected any member state's budget proposal. The bloc gave Rome 3 weeks, in fact, to revise its spending plans. Donald Courter breaks down the dispute.
Brussels is sharpening its knife in preparation for a new battle with Rome. For the first time, the EU has flat-out rejected a member state's budget, demanding a resubmission.
Today, for the first time, the Commission is obliged to request a euro area country to revise its draft budgetary plan. But we see no alternative than to request the Italian authorities to do so. It is in the interest of Italy and in the interest of the whole euro area.
The EU claims that Italy's debt situation is out of control and that Salvini's government needs to tighten its purse strings and fulfill its obligations. The Eurosceptics say it doesn't have anything to do with money, since there are other states with bloated budgets that have never felt such a heavy hand from Brussels.
This is the first Italian budget that the EU doesn't like. No surprise. This is the first Italian budget written in Rome and not in Brussels.
The Italian economy is healthy, and this is an economic move that will give Italy the stability it needs. We won't change one comma in this document.
There isn't any plan B. You have to consider that we are not gamblers that are betting on our kids' future on the roulette.
Spain, Belgium, Portugal, and Slovenia have all been in violation of their EU agreements in the past. And for years, France has broken the 3% deficit threshold imposed on it by the EU. As for debt, it's been in the red since 2002. And only this year, the second largest European economy received a carefully worded letter in response, asking, all very politely, to reduce its debts.
We thank you for sending the France 2019 draft budget that we received on October 15. We would like to ask you for more details. The Commission's preliminary assessment also indicates that the growth rate for France does not respect the reference rate of debt reduction in 2019.
So, Italy refused to be taken to heel by this double standard. Except the EU commissioner in charge of budgets didn't seem to find the stunt very funny, even connecting the Italian shoe shenanigans to a potential quick path to fascism.
The episode of the Made in Italy shoe is grotesque. At first you smile and we trivialize it because it's ridiculous. But then we start getting used to this kind of muted symbolic violence. And one day we wake up with fascism. Stay alert. Democracy is a fragile treasure.
Well, the draft budget would have seen over $500 million worth of cuts to defense spending, while putting more money towards social welfare and tax cuts. Not exactly a sound way to revive fascism, and certainly not a good way to be a shoo-in with the EU. Donald Corder, RT.
And you've been watching The Weekly here on RT International. Don't forget, though, we've got plenty of stories for you too at our website at rt.com.
So what we've got to do is identify the threats that we have.
It's crazy.
Confrontation, let it be an arms race.
Who is on offense? Very dramatic development.
I personally am going to resist.
I don't see how that strategy will be successful.
Very critical time.
Time to sit down and talk.
This is Harlan, Kentucky.
Old Harlan used to be a booming place. You could walk down the street, find anything you wanted.
A coal mining city with almost no coal mines left.
The jobs are gone. All the coal mines are shutting down. That was our lifeline.
These people are survivors of a world disappearing before their eyes.
I remember thinking when I was younger that if anything ever happened to the coal mines here, that it would become a ghost town. But I never thought in a million years I would see that. And it's happened. It's happened.
Previously on The Great American Pilgrimage.
Well, why can't we get a barge and put this RV on the barge and take it right out in the middle of Boston Harbor? Is that crazy? What?
I brought a jet. You saying I have to bring a barge, too? It's a pretty big ask.
You know, it'd be funny if we dressed up as pilgrims.
There you are.
I would love for you to take Max Kaiser.
Are you gonna drop me off in the past?
Wait a minute, no! Steven!
Hey, everybody. I'm Stephen Baldwin. Gosh, I look fantastic.
Hollywood guy.
Usual Suspects, my favorite movie.
Proud American.
First of all, I'm dressed as George Washington. Sure.
An RV enthusiast.
Uncle Steve McBee's about to drive the big boy bus.
This is my buddy Max, famous financial guru, and well, he's a little bit different.
I'm Honest Abe. You're Abraham Lincoln.
Oh my God, they're rolling their windows up.
Last but not least, my larger-than-life Pomeranian.
Be nice.
An aspiring star, Rio. With all the drama happening in our great country, I'm hitting the road to have some fun. Meet everyday Americans.
I don't know where you're.
What's America to you?
Our ancestors suffered the most.
And see how things got so crazy.
I was naked, completely naked.
He bit my finger off.
To hopefully start to bridge the gap. This is the Great American Pilgrimage.
Great American.
Yo, dude.
Hey,
You're not
buddy.
going to get rid of me that fast, okay?
What's the problem?
We're part of the pilgrimage, teamwork. You know, we got to do the whole Boston Harbor thing, right?
I do believe there is a tea party awaiting us, Maxwell.
That's what I was hoping. That's good.
It's the final stretch of the pilgrimage, and our heroes have set their sights on having a Boston Tea Party of their own. Max has narrowly escaped being left in the past, and Stephen has kept alive his unrealistic expectations of a barge.
What we now need to shift our focus to, time and energy-wise, is this. This is the most important part of the episode.
Bro, the pilgrimage must have its own tea party.
And with no word back from the masternodes, Stephen does his best to convince producers why the pilgrimage needs a barge. And with the day winding down, our heroes pull off to get some rest and clear their heads before the final day of the pilgrimage. Stephen has decided to visit our producer at 2 a.m.
What are you doing here?
Say, buddy, what about my barge?
What?
The barge for the RV for the Boston Tea Party. The pilgrimage needs the barge. No question.
How am I going to get a barge in 12 hours?
I don't know, but we talked about it. I told you. I have to have it. Yeah. Gotta have a barge.
Have it.
We need first thing in the morning.
Or the money for a barge.
Absolutely, for tomorrow morning. There's no way to have your own Boston Tea Party at the end of a pilgrimage without putting the RV on a barge into Boston Harbor. It has to happen. It's the Great American Pilgrimage. What's this? Pilgrimage. Figure it out.
After a good night's sleep, the pilgrimage heads back toward Boston, and the pressure is on to find a last-minute barge for cheap.
Now, let's slow down to go fast, but explain what you want to do.
So, what we're trying to do is put a 31-foot RV, a mobile home, on top of a barge and ship it out to sea from the Boston Harbor.
Might do a zip line. Zip line.
We may need paramedics at bay or an ambulance boat just in case for our stunt.
That's probably a good idea.
Hold on, slow down. So you want to do what? And this is supposed to happen today? Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, pal. You're out of luck.
Is the RV here?
Yes, it is. I'm on it right now. We're trying to shoot it today.
That's unfortunate with the short-term notice.
Yes, yeah, I know.
All right, let me make a couple logistics calls and I'll get back with you.
Any kind of help you can get to help secure that would be great.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
You're looking to rent a barge for today?
Yes. And just so I explain it to you, we're looking to just put a 31-foot RV.
Yeah, hold on. I'm going to have to stop you right there. I don't think I can get you a barge for today.
Okay.
Today, like, in a couple hours.
Yep.
No can do. I hope you find it, though, buddy.
Okay.
Actually, Robin might have one coming in from Maine today.
All right.
And then these are probiotics, buddy. These are good for your tummy. Tell me if you don't find those to be delicious. It's a gummy bear. Probiotics.
Looks like everything's going great for the final day of the pilgrimage.
Hey, Robin.
On a barge.
I have not, no.
Trust me, the end visual of the
the sooner the better, because we're
there
trying
were others I want
to
invite to join us.
I'm having a hard time. I'm having a hard time hearing you. 1 second. I'm just going to adjust my speaker. 1 sec. And then how much would it be on top of that?
Probably a minimum, I'd say between $15,000 and $20,000 just to get the barge on site. Unfortunately, with this short-term notice,
Yep.
I think there's obviously all our equipment is up on the board. The tugboat is going to be around $475 and about 8 hours.
So $20,000 all in. All right, sounds good.
All right, bye-bye.
All right.
Yeah, nice.
So, first thing we
You
have to
guys
do.
figured out?
Oh, we're right on top of it.
I got a question.
What did the lady say the barge was going to cost?
$15,000 at least.
But we're making progress.
Sure, yeah.
Barge, 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 barge.
With a solid plan in place and no means to pay for it, our heroes finally arrive at the shipyard to get their barge.